This is the Venturing Angler Podcast. I'm Tim Harden. In this episode, we'll be talking with Rodrigo Salles of Untamed Angling about fly fishing for Payara. Let's chat with Rodrigo. We're here with Rodrigo Salles of Untamed Angling. Rodrigo has been a guest on the Venturing Angler Podcast in the past, and we're glad to have you again, Rodrigo. Welcome back to the Venturing Angler Podcast.
Thank you very much, Teen. It's a pleasure to be with you again in the podcast and talking about jungle fly fishing and its species.
Well, let's get into it. So today we're going to focus on a specific fish, the Payara. This is a fish that has been getting my attention since the opening of a new lodge for Untamed Angling, the announcement of a new lodge. Let's talk about the species itself, Payara. So a fish that stands out, I think, for its physical characteristics more than a number of other fish. Although, you know, when you look at other fish like Dorado and peacock bass and so on, each fish has some physical characteristics that are unique. But I think what most people who are familiar with the fish are thinking about when they hear about Payara is these teeth. But there's much more. So how would you break down the Payara in general?
Yeah, first of all, the Payara, it's one of the top predators in the Amazon jungle rivers. It is a fish that roughly can reach 40 pounds. So it's one of the top, in my opinion, it's one of the top 4 or 5 jungle species that we can catch with a fly rod, and maybe one of the best species to catch on a fly rod in fresh water. And one of the most interesting things about the Payara, it is that there's no background on fly fishing techniques for this species, as we have for, obviously, trout, salmon, tarpon, bonefish, permit, and even peacock bass and Dorado. So it's a brand new thing, and it's super excited to develop, to understand better this species and develop new techniques and how to catch them consistently on the fly. And that's where I stand.
Yeah. So you mentioned it's one of these ultimate predator fish. And I think when you look at the fish itself, it's built to attack. And we see this in its behavior, but also, for example, these teeth. The teeth, let's start there. They're pretty big, sharp. How would you describe to listeners who might not be familiar what these teeth are like?
First of all, if anybody see a photo or a video of Payara and see the teeth, it's a bit scary because it looks like a freshwater shark or something like that, and those 2 big fangs on the lower jaw, like samurai saber or something like that, they are razor sharp, and they can slice and cut any kind of bait fish in the Amazon like nothing. So it's a perfect killing machine in all aspects, from the body to the shape to where the fish live, but mostly the mouth and the teeth are made to slice and cut the bait fish. And it's one of the most important characteristics of this species in terms also of the techniques we use, which I will explain later. But this it's a fish that it's made for destroy any kind of bait fish, and these 2 big fangs, when they penetrate the bait fish, they kill. Anybody that touched this teeth knows how sharp they are, and the sequence of the teeth from the upper mouth and the lower jaw, it's scary, and that's why some people knows the Payara as the vampire fish, but that's also other reasons that will explain why this name of vampire fish.
So, if I'm not mistaken, these teeth, I mean, fish use teeth for a number of reasons, but in this case, the teeth are not simply to break something apart or to hold something. These teeth are designed to kill
To
first.
kill.
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's where stands the difference of Payara with other jungle predatory fish, like the Dorado, for example. If you see the mouth of the Dorado, it's as powerful as a Payara one, but the Dorado teeth are smaller, and it's a really big sequences of smaller fish that also are made to crash and kill. But the Payara ones are like swords, they penetrate on the bait fish, and they kill by that reason. And that's where this species is interesting, because they live in the schools. For you understand better, there's several different species of Payara in the Amazon, and not only in the Amazon, also in the Paraná River Basin, the well-known chafalote in Argentina. It's a cousin of the Amazon Payara, but the largest species of Payara that lives in the clear waters of the Amazon basin rivers, basically in the southern Amazon basin, that are the rivers that are tributaries on the right bank of the Amazon River, like the Telespires, Juruena, Madeira, and Xingu, and many others. Uh, and this species, uh, as the Dorado, as other predatory species in the jungle, they prefer uh, the rapid waters, the fast waters. They migrate. They migrate long distance for feed and spawn, and they have the tendency to hunt in schools. They tend to be in big schools. So when they are start to hunting, imagine 50, 60 payara all together with those teeth and mouths chasing bait fish. It is it is like an army. It's impossible to get out of that. And that's where the Payara stands as the importance of a predatory fish in the Amazon rivers.
So they travel in groups to find their prey, like wolves, and then they gang up together to kill.
Exactly. Yeah, the behavior of the Payara, first, the biology of the fish, it's interesting, because if you see uh, the shape of a Payara, the fish, it is a gorgeous fish. It's interesting because you see a big tail made to swim in fast waters, like Atlantic salmon or any kind of fish that needs to swim against strong currents. Then the silver body with their blue and dark backs, which is it's perfect. If you see the body of a Payara, you can resemble any kind of a salmonid or whatever. But then you have the head, and you have the mouth, and you have those big eyes. Obviously, big eyes means fish that feed at night. Everybody knows that. And understand the right and the behavior of this fish. It's one of the most important things to understand how to catch them on the fly. But as I said, that it's so few background on that we need to stand, obviously, in all the biology and the studies and scientific studies that were made uh, on the Payara behavior, anatomy, feeding, and also migratory patterns, to understand better how the fish behave in these rivers, seasons, and whatever, in order to get success in catching them on the fly. Normally, the Payara, it's a casual catch in many rivers that people are fishing for peacock bass, or they're fishing for other jungle species in fast waters, and then boom, they catch a Payara. It is really hard to get a place where you can have a consistent uh, Payara fishing. And most of that, it's because you need to understand better where the fish are, the right seasons, the migratory patterns, where they're feeding, the column of the water they're feeding, because they can lay right there on the bottom in deep pools during the midday, and they come to the surface in other moments and rolling and hunting in the surface. So all these aspects are really important to to learn and understand in order to get success to catch this fish on the fly rod. But there's no background, so we rely and we stand in these all these scientific papers, and I studied a lot of that before getting to the into the jungle and started chasing this fish. You know.
Yeah. Um, you just said so much there to unpack. I never thought about the tail that way. The tail does support like an Atlantic salmon or a king salmon where there's this larger tail. It does support uh, migratory behavior, but it also it's used in the for power to attack bait or its prey, and then of course for the angler it's a source of power for a big fight.
Definitely, definitely. If you see the tail of the fish in comparison with the body, you understand that it's a fish that need to swim against strong currents. And imagine that this fish can migrate hundreds of miles upstream in huge rivers and huge rapids, white water running upstream, just like a salmon. But imagine a volume of the Amazon rivers. So they need to swim really strong against really strong currents in order to get in the right spawning grounds. In that way, moving upstream obviously is the moment when they're feeding and feeding aggressively, and understanding the seasons of each river in the Amazon is key feature to get at the right moment to catch this fish. But if you see, obviously, they 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 need to be close to the fast waters. They need to have a lot of oxygen, just like the Dorado. They need a lot of oxygen, and you can fight a payara close to the fast waters, even white waters, runs and rapids, and but also in some deep pools. And it is still a lot of to learn the behavior of this fish when they are in each part. But one thing is sure: when they want to run upstream, they can even go up in some big rapids and even some falls, just like a salmon.
Hmm. Their their heads have a weird shape too. Have you been able to find out why they've got this head that sort of drops down in this weird structure?
Yeah, it is something that it's unique. If you see all other species in the jungle family of predatory fish, the only one that have this kind of head in terms of the teeth, the proportion of the mouth in the size of the head and the size of the eyes, the Payara family is the only one that have this kind of head. If you see the Dorado, they have a big head, but then they have smaller eyes, smaller teeth. Peacock bass, they have massive, powerful heads, a big mouth, like a bass, but no teeth. The wolffish, they have big heads, but their teeth are different, and their eyes are up like the Arapaima. So it's a pretty unique fish. Sometimes they're sleek, you know, just like just like a salmon to run upstream, uh, and obviously, like any predatory fish that lives in oxygenated runs and rapids, they jump a lot. That's another characteristic of the Payara that's really fun.
Hmm. Um, it's amazing that they jump too with that size. It sounds to me like in every aspect, from the way they attack to the way they fight with that, especially with that tail, um, and then they jump. It's a perfect fish to target with a fly.
Yeah, specifically in the jungle, I consider the Payara one of the top five fish that you can chase on the fly rod, and probably one of the most exciting, just because it is so many things to learn on that. So many things to learn. in comparison with other species that we have background on knowledge on the fly rod, like the peacock bass and the Dorado, that have decades of people doing that. And wherever you go, you go with some kind of flies, and you know the behavior of the fish, the peacock bass, where they stand, and so on. Same for the Dorado, but the Payara, and you get in a huge river in the Amazon, even a clear water river, you look and say, where are these fish? You know, and it's different because um, sometimes they are in the rapids, sometimes they are not in the rapids, sometimes they are laying in 20 feet pools, really deep, and they're feeding down there. If you can get your fly and reach your fly down deep, you can get many hookups. So uh, what I made in the last couple of years is to concentrate my efforts to understand better the behavior of this fish, chase this fish, and try to find the techniques, the right places, the right season to catch the Payara in a consistent way with a fly rod, which is amazing because what what else species we have in freshwater that we don't have any kind of knowledge or background? You know, that's why, in my opinion, the jungle fly fishing it's so exciting. You know, because we still have a lot of things to learn. We still have species that there's no background on the fly fishing, and no scientific studies, no tagging, nothing. You know, so they're amazing, and they're perfect game fish, as perfect as any other game fish in fresh or salt water.
That's especially impressive to hear from someone like you who has made himself known for jungle fly fishing, that you would be entering in a way a new frontier of taking on a new species, one that you've caught before, but doing it in a new way that really is focused on learning more, exploring more, discovering more about this fish.
It's exactly what we did with the Dorado in the Bolivian rivers, uh, and we found the places to catch them in the perfect way. Side fishing, the same happened with a really large peacock bass. But as I said, there's some background, so you have some paths to follow. On the Payara, you don't have any pattern, any path to follow. It's a trial and error. It's trying to find a way, and that takes much more. It's longer than other species, but luckily we have some good friends that are fish biologists in the Amazon that helped us to understand better this fish in terms of migration, physiology, and anatomy, what they eat, feeding behaviors, and so on. And all of these papers from the Amazon universities, from these fish biologists, it's so rich to 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 help us to get in this adventure into the jungle in trying to find the right places to catch them. And most important, to understand the right techniques we should use, because they are completely different than fishing for peacock bass, or than fishing for Dorado, or than fishing for Arapaima. They're another game fish. You're not using any kind of other techniques we use for this other species. It's completely different, you know.
Let's talk about some of these techniques. Um, the Okay, so wire leader is a must, but after that, what are
Definitely.
the
If you want to start well, you must start with a
yeah?
good wire leaders. And one thing I learned in terms of wire leaders, and that I use also for the Dorado, or any kind of other 30 critter in the jungle, like the bicuda or the wolffish. Uh, it is the kind of wire you use. Obviously, if you use a knottable wire, like the 7x7 strands that you can tie your knots, and they're so flexible, that makes the fly swims better than a hard wire or something like that. That obviously fish, especially in clear water, will will not get your fly on that. And it seems like some stupid thing, but it's not, especially in the clear water. Another aspect, it's not being bright. If you're fishing in clear water, you should use some kind of camo color or a black color wire that makes completely difference, not only for the Payara but also for the Dorado or the Bicuda or the Wolfish.
The flies are pretty big.
Yeah, I always say that big flies, big fish. Sometimes that's not true, even in the jungle. Like the tarpon fishing in the Keys. Sometimes you're using small flies and catching 100-pound tarpon. Sometimes that happens in the jungle, but as a rule of thumb, the Payara eats big bait fish. You can see the Payara eating sabalo of 3, 4, 5 pounds. So obviously, a bigger fly swimming properly with a right shape and silhouette in the water will attract big fish. If you're using a smaller fly, sometimes you attract not only smaller Payara, but you can attract other species, like some bicuda, peacock bass, or whatever. But if you're aiming big Payara, you should go big fly. As matter of colors, as far we fish it for the Payara, it is still some mystery in some part, but we found out that the color is not the most important thing in order to catch the Payara. You can use a dark color, black and purple, white and red, chartreuse, in the same moment, in the same conditions, in the same depth, and you're catching fish. It's basically the shape of the fly, and most importantly, how deep your fly is going. Where the fish are feeding, your fly must be. And this fish can feed from the surface to 20, 30 feet deep, and they're feeding. If your fly is not in the right place, in the right time, you're not fishing. You're just swinging your line and your fly in the water. So you must understand where these fish are feeding. And sometimes, obviously, it's a trial and error. You should cast and you should try different depths and different swings. And most of the techniques, it's pretty much like casting in the current, down and across, let it sink, swing the fly. Sometimes it's slow strip, sometimes it's faster strip, sometimes some twitching, and you can find the right way to get them. One of the most exciting things to see the Payara is when they're really in feeding frenzies, they roll. They come to the surface like a tarpon, like the arapaima. They come to the surface, but they're not taking oxygen from the air. They're just rolling in the surface, and for me, it's like an army movement of the school of the Payara that is trying to struggle and push the bait fish against the rock beds or whatever. So they roll in the surface. When you see that happening, obviously you are with a 60 or 70% of the game on, because the fish are there in the surface rolling. So then it's the moment to cast a floating line or a floating with an intermediate tip and strip fast, and the fish, boom, take your fly. But sometimes you see that for a couple of minutes or even a minute, and then the fish disappear and they go really deep. And then you need to reset all of your tactics and techniques, and then put in a sinking line or a 300 grand, 400 grand, and make it deeper and strip slower in order to get a bite. And that can change like nothing, like that.
Wow. How I know a question that I have to ask now, because I know a lot of people are going to put comments under this post, but what size hooks? It's when with fish like this.
It is really important question, because it's not only the size, but where we put the hook. I have been a lot of success using tube flies. And why? Because this fish, have a very specific behavior in hunting and killing the bait. Imagine that they have these two big fangs in the lower jaw, and they're come to kill the bait fish. They cannot just kill and eat in the same movement, and that's a very interesting thing about the biology of this fish. They first come and they use those super sharp teeth, fangs, and they kill the bait, or they really make a serious injury in the bait and make the bait bleed, and they release the bait and they make a turn and come back, and then they eat and swallow it. Because if they put their fangs in the middle of the bait fish, they cannot swallow the fish, the bait, you know. So it's a movement that the Payara make in a coordination of the school, that they first kill the bait, or they hit the bait, and then they come back to eat. And sometimes when they do that, they're not doing like the Dorado or peacock bass, that they kill the bait from the head just to swallow immediately the bait fish. Like Dorado and peacock bass, they come to and attack from the head of the bait and then swallow the bait. The Payara attacked from the tail and the middle body or whatever. So in terms of flies, I see that, especially when they're fishing in mid-column or deep column of the water, tube fly, where they have the hook placed in the middle portion of the fly, is the best in terms of proper hook sets. You know, we lose a lot of fish when we have a common fly, because if you have a long fly, the fish come and attack from the tail, and you can make a proper hook set. So first we started to use some tandem hooks, and then we developed these tube flies, and also with the tube flies we can also use some copper tubes, some bronze tubes, so we can make the fly sinks better, and use one hook or even two hooks. It depends. It depends the situation. It depends of the size of the fly and the depth you are fishing. You're fishing really deep, I prefer to use two hooks, because this fish can attack from the tail, and that is really deep, and they are attacked by the movement and so on. So the flies are really specific on that for the Payara. Obviously, you can use a common saltwater streamer with a 4 or 5 hook and have success, but we have been studying a lot and developing a lot and changing these flies to have even better results, and it's proven to be really, really better. Obviously, big hooks, sharp hooks, saltwater style is what you need, because these fish have all bones in their mouth, and it's not easy to make the hook set.
And that hook set, I imagine, is just, one of these species where it's like a hard strip, huh?
Yes, it's really hard. It's one of the most difficult fish to have a proper hook set, as far as I know. Even if I compare with arapaima or tarpon, it is really, really hard. And it's basically because this fish, as I said, come attack to kill the bait, and that's really fast. And you're stripping your fly, and then you feel like boom, and you try to make a proper strip set with your lining hand and low rod tip, but it's impossible. The fish is so fast when they come to kill the bait, or obviously to kill your fly, that you can make it a proper hook set. What I learned, it is obviously by studying the biology of this fish, they kill the bait, but they come back. So one of the big mistakes of people that are fishing for Payara, they have this first strike, and they miss the hook set, and they stop stripping. That's wrong. That's where you should strip faster, or even twitch the fly, because the Payara will come back. And when they come back to swallow the bait. And then you can have the chance to have a proper hook set. Obviously, if you make a good hook set in the top of the mouth or in the tongue, it's better. But size of the head and the inner head, it's all bones. And obviously, this fish can jump and off like any other predator fish that have hard mouth, and when they jump, they can be out, obviously.
Amazing. This sounds pretty appealing already. Because one thing that is unique about the place, which we'll go into more detail here a little bit, is that where you're targeting them is there's a lot of sight fishing as well. So let's talk about where Payara exists, regionally, but then focus more on the Rio Xingu. So where can, and you got to this a little bit earlier when you were talking about the migration, but where can Payara be found?
Basically, the the biggest species of Payara, the largest species of Payara, they're found in the tributaries of the Amazon River, like all the rivers that are in the right shore of the Amazon River, like the Xingu, the Telespires, the Juruena, Roosevelt, the Madeira, and all the tributaries of these watersheds, you can find the Payara. But basically, if you see where the best places are, you just need to look at the structure. It is, if you have fast and clear water, oxygenated waters, have lots of bait fish, lots and lots of bait fish, your chances to have more and more Payara are higher, obviously, than in rivers that you don't have these characteristics, even if they can be found on that, you know. So they are all spread from several different rivers in the Amazon watershed, but some specific places you have more success on that. And we have been searching for this fish in several different places. We have found some really good fishing in some specific spots, but in my opinion, the Xingu River it's the top of the top in terms of Payara, big Payara fishing in consistent fishing for the Payara. Basically because it's super clear water, rock bed. The river have a really natural geography that allows the Payara migrate and feed a lot, because most of the Xingu River, from the headwaters to the lower sectors, are inside indigenous lands or national parks. So you have a natural protection. You know that in the Amazon, we are not like 50 years ago that you can go anywhere in the Amazon and catch hundreds of fish. No, we have a lot of threatens. We have mining, we have illegal logging, and we have deforestation, the fires, the cattle ranches. We have a lot of stuff going on in the Amazon, and the rivers are not like before. So nowadays, the best places to catch these species are even in the national parks or indigenous lands. And in my opinion, and several jungle fly fishing friends that we have in Brazil and in the Amazon, the Xingu River is the top. We have been searching for this fish in different countries, and friends that are fishing or for the Payara in Venezuela, Colombia, and have some success on that. But in terms of consistency, fishing for big Payara, the Xingu River, it is one of the best, in my opinion.
Yeah, so the numbers of fish and then the size of the fish in the Xingu is something that I know has made this stand out. And then, of course, the fact that you guys have um, a relationship with the community there that allows exclusivity.
Yeah, what happened is in 2013, we started the Kenjan project in the Iriri River, which is a tributary of the Xingu River in the south of the Pará state, inside the Kayapó indigenous land. And we established this good relationship with the Kayapós, and we built a lodge with them in the Iriri River, which is the clearest watershed that I ever saw in the Amazon for multi-variety species. And after 2 years, the Kayapós of the Xingu River in the same indigenous land told us, why don't you come here and see what we have? And say, but you have mostly the same as the Iriri River. And they said, yes, but we have big Payara, and I have lots of them. So that obviously got my attention and say, we have probably in our backyard the best and one of the best Payara fisheries and a world-class fishery right there. And then we start to get some scouting trips there. But the problem in they're struggling to get some illegal activities out of their land, and some also some commercial fishing out of their land. With our help, they get the guard posts and start to protect the river, together with the environmental agency and the indigenous affairs of Brazilian government. And from that point on, year after year, the river proved to be amazing in terms of big payara on the fly. And I've been scouting for several years, and in 2019 we decided to open the camp with a scouting trips, exploratory seasons with some anglers, and the results were amazing. The results are really amazing. Then we decided to build a lodge there that will be open for the next season, and it's really exciting to have finding the place that you can really aim the payara and get big fish in a consistent way. Because, as I said, most of other rivers you can catch payara. You can catch payara where you're catching peacock bass, but you go there and you catch a couple, or you need to use super sinking lines in fast water to get one or two, and then it's a river that have access to other people. They're fishing with natural baits or whatever. So I think that place, the Xingu River in the Cayabo land, it is the most important sanctuary for the payara in the Amazon, definitely. And we have been really successful in terms of numbers of fish, every size, 12, 14 pounds. We have catching 20 pounders, many of them. We have 24, 25 pound fish landing on the fly, which is amazing. And the natives there, the Kayapos there, said that fish over 30 pounds there, it's a real thing, and I have many reports on that.
That's amazing. Um, I wanted to, you just mentioned the Kaipo, so let's say a little bit more there. I know that you have a close relationship with the people there, and I know from conversations we've had in the past that you are you find yourself very attracted to or connected with some of their rituals. There's You guys have put out a couple of good videos recently about fly fishing for a payara at Xingu Lodge. The most recent piece of exciting content I've seen is from Fly Fisherman Magazine, and it looked
Yes.
like you and Ross Purnell were doing some fishing for a film that's coming up. I'd like you to say a little bit more about that, and then I want to ask you about the rituals that you're connected to, because I think both are related. I haven't seen the film yet, but let's talk about Blood Run, and then let's talk about some of the rituals, and namely this what you do with your arms and the teeth.
Definitely. Well, Ross is a good friend, and he'll be fishing with us in the jungle for many times. And I invited him to come to Kenyan to experience the Kayapa culture, and obviously the amazing multi-variety species in crystal clear water, sight fishing, wet wading there. But when I mentioned the big payara in the Xingu River, that it will be our brand new project and it's still in development, he said, I want to go. If it's close, I want to go. I said, sure, let's do extension. And then we made an extension to the Xingu River that was in late August last year. And we stayed there for a couple of days fishing for payara, and it was really amazing in all aspects, and definitely proved it to be a world class fishery for payara with no doubt. We caught a 24-pound fish. I caught a 24-pound fish, and what makes me really excited about also the Payara with the Kayapos. It has the Kayapos of the Xingu. They have a very specific ancient ritual about this fish. All the Kayapos, they have rituals of passage to become a warrior. To become a warrior in the Kayapa culture, it's like to become a man. You know, like you need to become a warrior to take care of your family because you need to hunt, then you need to take care of your village and so on. So all the men in the Kayapa villages, they need to pass to this warrior ritual passage. You know, and each Kayapa village have different rituals to transform the young Kayapas and men in warriors. And in the Xingu River, what they respect most are the Payara. For them, the Payara is the most important fish in the river, and it is a fish that brings them power. So the first time I was there, I saw many of the Kayapas with some scars in their arms and their legs and parts of their body, some deep scars. And I asked them, what is that? And they say, that's the Payara ritual. It's the Payara teeth in our bodies. I say, wow. And how is that? And then the shaman, the most important spiritual leaders in the Kapa, told me that there is a really important ancient ritual where you catch big Payara when they're young, and you take the teeth and you bring to the leader of the village to make this ritual of scarification, that they cut your skin with the fang, with the teeth of the Payara, and you need to stand then and be strong. But once you get that, several cuts of with the teeth of the Payara made by the shaman, you get the power and the energy and the spirit of this fish in your body. And they truly believe that. The Payara is the most important fish for them. So they believe that doing that, they will bring you the force and the strength of this fish to you. That definitely will become you better hunters and better fishermen in the water and in the jungle. So they do that to be a warrior. So I was deeply interested in that because is their tradition, is their ancient knowledge, and I said, why not? You know, I'm here, and I caught a big Payara, and Ideo, one of the Kayapol leaders of the Xingu, said to me and Ross, if you catch a big Payara, you make the ritual because you're becoming warriors on the Xingu River. And I said with Ross, hey, okay, done deal, let's do it. And then finally I got a monster Payara, the largest we saw so far. And then we got the teeth of this fish. Obviously, we released this fish. That's the fish that is in the cover of the Fly Fisherman magazine. And we made a ritual with a shaman in the Cryango village. And that was amazing.
That's right. I forgot that you're on the cover of Fly Fisherman magazine right now with the Payara. And it's from that trip. So this, for those who want to learn more about this, of course, there's the rest of this episode of this podcast and what you've heard so far, but there's a lot of great video content. I think I read that Blood Run comes out in August, and then there's the new issue of Fly Fisherman that's out right now too, with an article about this trip. So this is
exactly, Ross wrote that article that explains exactly this project and this ritual and more about fly fishing for Payara. And Blood Run will be live in August, and it is a great film. It's a great documentary about the Kayapa culture and how they are protecting one of the most important rivers in the Amazon, that is the Xingu River and the Iriri River. So it's really exciting to be part of this project with the Kayapas and also helping them to protect more than 10 million hectares of the virgin Amazon jungle and and pristine, unspoiled water rivers that we are, and the chances to have fly anglers there and with the tourism, it's amazing because this project is helping them to have a sustainable activity to protect their land.
Yeah, and that's more important now than ever, especially with all these fires last year and this new, more aggressive effort to destroy ecosystems, especially in the Amazon. But before I get too excited heading in one direction and another talking about this, there are other fish species there too on the Rio Xingu.
Oh yeah. We have peacock bass. The Melanie species of peacock bass can reach up to 12 to 14 pounds. And also it's a species that prefer to live in moving waters than in still waters. So we fish them in runs and fast water. So it's really exciting. We have big bicudas. We have wolffish. We have pacu. We have matrinchan. We have up to 8 to 10 different species we can catch consistently on the fly. So that makes a trip a very exciting thing in terms of multi-variety species in the fly rod in the Amazon jungle.
What gear? I mean, you mentioned several species, so let's break down we talked about flies for Payara, but let's break down the rest of the gear for Payara, and then if someone's heading down to the Xingu River, what other gear they might want to.
Yeah, definitely. We're talking about the hooks, we're talking about the flies, but I forgot to mention about the fly rods and the outfits that we use. But obviously, imagine that you're fishing in a big water, fast current, with a fish that can reach, I don't know, 30 pounds. We use normally 9, 10 weight rods, strong rods, saltwater style, good reels, good drags, and I recommend having at least 2 or 3 outfits, one with a floating line, floating with an intermediate tip, and then another one with a 400 grain sinking line. So with that, we can cover any kind of specific situation for the Payara, because as I said, sometimes they're rolling the surface and you're fishing in top. Sometimes you need to put your fly right there down deep, and the swing of the fly and where the fly swim in the water column, it's crucial to have a strike. And that's important that I forgot to mention, and is really important in terms of fishing for Payara. When you find that and you have one strike, you should repeat the exactly swing and exactly that, because these fish are in schools. So that's normally when you have one strike, if you're fishing with a buddy in the same boat, and you do the right thing in the same depth, you can have multiple hook sets, and you can have the day of fishing in a moment that you find this fish feeding. So sometimes you spend some hours scouting and trying to find where the fish are if they're not rolling. But when you have the hook set and have the strike, you should focus on doing the same thing, because you have multiple attacks, because this fish, they are standing in schools.
For anglers who like to travel, getting from point A to point B is often an important part of deciding whether to get somewhere, and also it gives perspective with where you're located. For a U.S. audience, for example, that's probably the majority of our listeners. How would one get down to Xingu Lodge?
Well, from all American anglers that are coming to the Amazon, they normally think that it's super far away to get into the Amazon. That's not true. Once you fly to Miami, you have daily flights from Miami to Manaus, which is the most important city in the Brazilian Amazon, and that's just 4.5 hours flight from Miami, easy to get, daily flights. And then from Manaus, you have an overnight. Our ground staff will be waiting for you in Manaus. You have a good overnight there. It's a nice town. Have some good restaurants you can have there of the Amazon, in the most important town in the Brazilian Amazon. And then the next day we take the charter flight from Manaus directly to the Xingu River, to the Pucararanque village, where we have a landing strip there. And then we are we'll be there with the guides and our staff together with the kayapos and go to the village. We have some contact with the kayapos where they talk about a little bit about their culture and their land and why they're doing that project with us. And from the landing strip to the lodge, it's 20 minutes boat ride, and we have the lodge there right in the most important and productive stretch of the Xingu River for the Payara.
Excellent. That's not too bad. So you're deep in the middle of nowhere in the wilderness of the Amazon, and it's not too far of a distance for.
No, it's not a big deal, and obviously our lodge have all amenities that our other lodges that we operate, and from Wi-Fi, satellite internet, any kind of communications to good food, good wines, and professional English-speaking guides. That is a standard of our Untamed angling operations together and paired with the native guides. That together, the professional fly fishing guide, English-speaking guide, together with the native guide that have all the ancient knowledge, provides a better experience. The professional guides know all the techniques on the fly fishing, and the native guides knows all about their river, their fish, their land, and that's where we provide a really, really nice and distinct experience for our anglers.
Excellent. Well, for those who want to learn more about all of this, xingulodge.com. And Xingu is spelled Xingu, so xingulodge.com. And then on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Xingu Lodge. That's where you can learn more. Rodrigo, it's great having you again. Let's do it again soon.
Thank you very much, Tim, for the opportunity and talk about this amazing species that's Payara. Obviously, anybody that want to have more information and any doubts, count on me. My email is rodrigo@uangling.com. And anybody that wants to learn more about jungle species, jungle fly fishing, any kind of species, flies, techniques, I'm more than available to talk and chat because I'm really excited about the fly fishing in the jungle, and anybody that is interested about that, it's more than a pleasure to help.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Rodrigo.
Thank you very much, Tim.